Have you ever sat in a room that was designed to be sterile and boring like a municipal courtroom, but felt like the air was actually made of lead? That was me in courtroom for B. My shirt was sticking to my back, and I was frantically wiping my palms on my dress pants, trying to look like a composed tech professional instead of a terrified child. Across the aisle, at the plaintiff's table, sat my parents, my own flesh and blood. But they weren't looking at me like a son. They were looking at me like I was a broken vending machine that had swallowed their dollar bill. They were suing me, and not just for a loan or a disagreement. They were using a twisted, archaic interpretation of filial responsibility laws to petition the court to seize control of my assets. They claimed I owed them a debt for the burden of raising me. They wanted my savings, my car, and the equity in the small condo I had just bought. They wanted to strip me down to zero right there in front of a judge. Sitting there, looking at my mother's smug face and my father's rigid, entitled posture, I actually started to gaslight myself. I thought, am I the bad guy? Is it wrong to want to keep the life I built? Before I tell you about the moment the bailiff stood up and absolutely destroyed them, you have to understand that this wasn't just about money. This was the final battle of a war that started when I was 5 years old. And I need to know if you would have fought back as hard as I did. To get why my parents were trying to legally rob me, you have to understand their mindset. To them, I wasn't a child. I was a long-term mutual fund that hadn't yielded a return yet. My parents were financially creative with their own money buying new cars every 2 years. To flex on the neighbors, but were absolute tyrants with everyone else's. I grew up being told I was a walking expense report. If I needed sneakers because my toes were touching the pavement, it was treated like a household bankruptcy event. I'll never forget being 10 years old and wanting to join the soccer team. The fee was $50. My dad sat me down at the kitchen table, pulled out a calculator, and lectured me for an hour about mortgage interest rates, concluding that my selfishness regarding soccer was going to put us on the street. I didn't play soccer. That was the vibe. I was a debt they had incurred. When I turned 16, I realized the only way out was financial independence. I got a job washing dishes at a diner. Brutal work, grease burns, late nights. The second I got my first paycheck, my mother was there with her hand out. She claimed that since I had income, I owed room and board. They took 70% of my minimum wage earnings. I was 16, working 30 hours a week to wear clothes that didn't fit and eat generic cereal, effectively subsidizing their lifestyle. But I was smart. I squirreled away the other 30% in a hollowed-out textbook in my closet and an online bank account they didn't know existed. I became obsessed with money specifically, having enough of it to get away from them. When high school graduation hit, the talk went exactly as I expected.'You're 18. Figure it out,' my dad said, flipping channels on a flat-screen TV that cost more than a semester of community college. So I did. I took out loans in my name. I worked 2 jobs while getting my computer science degree. I lived with 4 guys in a roach motel of an apartment. I missed the parties, the spring breaks, the fun. I just worked. The hardest part was graduation day. They showed up, took photos, and posted them on Facebook with captions about their hard work raising a successful son. They took credit for the degree they refused to pay a cent for. After college, I grinded. I got into a tech startup early, worked 80-hour weeks, and rode the wave up. I wasn't buying yachts, but I paid off my loans and bought a reliable car. And finally, the big one, I bought a 2-bedroom condo in the city. It was mine. Every brick, every mortgage payment. That was the mistake. I posted a photo of the keys on social media. It was like ringing a dinner bell for vultures. After years of barely texting me, suddenly they wanted to reconnect. I invited them to dinner. Desperate for that scrap of parental approval. It was a disaster. They walked in without wiping their feet, criticized the paint, and checked the price tags on my furniture. During dinner roast I cooked for 4 hours, my dad put down his fork and dropped the bomb. "Son," he said, using his business voice. "We're getting older. Retirement isn't looking great. We think it's time you stepped up." They laid out a plan. They wanted me to pay off their mortgage, buy them a new luxury car, and give them a monthly stipend that cost more than my own housing. I asked, "Why would I do that?" My mom looked genuinely insulted. "Because we raised you. We sacrificed. You owe us." I exploded. I brought up the soccer fees, the 70% wage theft, the zero help with college. I told them I didn't survive because of them. I survived in spite of them. They stormed out, threatening to make me pay. I changed my number. 6 weeks later, I got served with the lawsuit. So there I was. In court. Their lawyer, a greasy guy in an ill-fitting suit, gave an opening statement painting them as martyrs who starved so I could thrive, only to be abandoned by an ungrateful tech bro son. My mom was dabbing dry eyes with a tissue. It was Oscar-worthy. But then came the discovery phase. The judge had ordered a court-appointed official to create a master inventory of my assets and their origins to see if I truly owed my parents for my success. The bailiff stood up with a stack of papers. The room went silent. "Exhibit C, Inventory of Assets and Origins," he read. "Item 1, 2-bedroom condominium. Down payment sourced solely from defendant's personal savings. Mortgage paid exclusively from defendant's salary." My parents shifted. They hated hearing that I did it alone. Item 2, 2021 sedan. Financed in defendant's name. No cosigners. It went on like this, proving I built everything myself. But then, the bailiff got to the evidence my lawyer, Sarah, had submitted. Item 45. The bailiff read, "Box of childhood items containing 1 pair of soccer cleats, size youth 6. Note indicates purchase by defendant at age 10 using earnings from neighborhood yard work." After parents refused registration fees, the air in the room changed. It wasn't tense anymore. It was shocked. Item 46. Receipts for university tuition, $62,000. All payments made via student loans or direct payment from defendant. No parental contribution found. Item 47. He continued. Payroll ledger from Tony's Diner. 2010. Cross-referenced with defendant's bank withdrawals showing 70% of minors' wages. Removed in cash weekly. Defendant's affidavit states these funds were surrendered for room and board at age 16. You could hear a pin drop. My dad turned beet red. My mom was whispering furiously to their lawyer, who looked like he wanted to vanish. Then, the final nail in the coffin. Item 52. Framed photograph of plaintiffs and defendant at university graduation. Frame and print purchased by defendant. Note indicates that during the event, plaintiffs asked defendant for gas money to drive home. The judge, a stern woman who had seen it all, slowly took off her glasses. She looked at my parents with pure ice in her veins. "In all my years on the bench," she said, her voice shaking with suppressed rage, "I have rarely seen such a grotesque display of entitlement. You didn't come here for justice. You came here to cash out on a son you treated like a tenant." She dismissed the case with prejudice. She ordered them to pay all my legal fees. Walking out of that courthouse wasn't a victory lap. I felt exhausted. The illusion of having a family was gone forever, destroyed by public record. But I also felt free. The list had set me free. I sold the condo to many bad memories and moved to the coast. I haven't spoken to them since. This ordeal taught me one thing. Sometimes the people supposed to be your safety net are the ones cutting the rope. You don't owe your abusers a comfortable retirement just because they share your DNA. If you were on my side during this nightmare, hit that like button so I know I'm not crazy. And seriously, let me know in the comments. Was the judge too harsh? Or did they get exactly what they deserved? I'll see you in the next story. But the story didn't end the second the gavel hit the wood. Real life is messier than that. I walked out to the parking lot that afternoon. The sun glaring off the asphalt, and I was shaking. Not from fear anymore, but from the adrenaline crash. I was fumbling for my keys when I heard footsteps behind me. Fast, angry footsteps. You think this is over? It was my dad. He and my mom had followed me out. The bailiff was still back at the entrance, so they felt bold again. My dad's face was a mottled purple, veins bulging in his neck. My mom looked smaller than I'd ever seen her, but her eyes were venomous. You humiliated us, she hissed. In public? After everything we did? I turned around and, for the first time in my life, I didn't see giants. I didn't see authority figures. I saw too sad, desperate people who were bad with money and worse with relationships. I didn't humiliate you, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. The truth humiliated you. All I did was show the receipts. We're going to appeal. My dad shouted, stepping into my personal space. We'll drag this out until you're bankrupt. I laughed. I actually laughed. Dad, the judge just ordered you to pay my legal fees. Sarah is one of the best lawyers in the state. Her bill is going to be about $45,000. If you appeal and lose again, that number doubles. Do you have $90,000? The color drained from his face. He knew he didn't. He knew I knew he didn't. Don't contact me again, I said. If you do, I'll file for a restraining order, and I'll use today's transcript as evidence of harassment. I got in my car, locked the doors, and watched them standing there in the rearview mirror as I drove away. That was the last time I saw them in person. The fallout was swift. Sarah didn't play around collecting those fees. From what I heard through a cousin, I still talk too. My parents had to sell that ridiculous boat they never used and downgrade one of their cars, just to cover the judgment. The irony wasn't lost on me. They sued me to fund their retirement, and instead, they torpedoed it. I sold my condo 3 weeks later. I couldn't stay there. Every time I looked at the hallway, I saw my dad sneering at the paint. I took the profit, packed up my life, and moved 3 states away to a small coastal town. It took me a long time to deprogram myself. For the first 6 months, I'd panic every time I spent money on myself. I'd buy a nice coffee and hear my dad's voice calling me selfish. I'd turn on the AC and hear my mom screaming about the electric bill. I actually had to go to therapy to learn that it's okay to enjoy the fruits of your own labor. But there's one last thing I need to tell you. About 6 months ago, a letter arrived at my new address. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting. It was from my aunt, my mom's sister, acting as a flying monkey for them. Inside was a picture of my dad in a hospital bed. He'd had a mild heart attack. The letter was a guilt trip masterpiece. It said, he's asking for you. He's sorry. Family is everything. Don't let him die thinking you hate him. I sat on my porch, looking out at the ocean, holding that letter. The old me would have booked a flight immediately. The old me would have rushed back to the slaughterhouse hoping for a hug. But I looked at the photo, and I looked at my life, my peaceful, quiet, drama-free life. I realized that sorry doesn't fix a lifetime of being treated like a bank account. Sorry doesn't reimburse me for a childhood spent in anxiety. I walked inside, threw the letter in the trash, and went to meet my friends for dinner. My chosen family. The people who ask how I am, not what I can buy them. I didn't go back. I haven't heard an update. And honestly, I don't look for them. So, here is the real lesson. You can break the cycle. It's lonely at first, and it hurts like hell to cut off the limb to save the body. But once you heal, it is the most beautiful feeling in the world. If you're still listening, and you're the family scapegoat or the investment scheme child, get your receipts. Hide your money, and get out. Make sure you're subscribed for more stories about survival and justice. And seriously, drop a comment below. Would you have gone to the hospital? Or would you have thrown that letter in the trash just like I did? Stay safe, everyone, and keep your debit cards to yourselves.